spring training is almost over. Opening day is very close to being here, and we got to see plenty of the Mets prospects in action last night at the spring breakout game. A lot to go over. Let's get into it. Roll the music. Hi there, welcome to Mike's METS Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pashota, and a wonderful Friday to everybody. We are less than a week away from opening day, this next Thursday. Very close to being here, and we're going to get to see the 2026 Mets in action very soon. We have seen plenty of them in spring training. Of course, the World Baseball Classic has given us a very clear appraisal as to what these guys can do, particularly Juan Soto. He had a fantastic tournament. I'm glad for him. Noel McLean was solid. There wasn't anything amazing in anything that he did during the World Baseball Classic, but there is a difference between being a rookie and a pro in this league. And Noel McLean, as good as he is, and he is like utterly fantastic at times, there is still room to grow with McLean. I think people kind of have to sort of like temper their expectations at times with McLean, and they think he's Paul Skeens. He has maybe as good stuff as Skeens. He doesn't have quite the command. He doesn't have quite the knowledge of what he's doing back there. There's just a bit of a gap there. It's one that will lessen in time, and people give McLean a lot of credit because of how good he is and how well he acquitted himself at the major league level already. But I think we do have to sort of reset our expectations about what he's going to do. He's not going to dominate every start. There were certainly starts that he made last year that were less than impressive. I think he gives up. Maybe he's a little dangerous in terms of giving up the home run ball at times, and but his stuff, his pure stuff, is just fantastic in terms of what he can bring. Just from the sinker ball being just such a terrific pitch at getting batters to keep the ball on the ground, and then following it up with what is, in my opinion, the best sweeper in baseball. That is just a fantastic pitch, and you can see all the angles of it, and what he does with that pitch, just really amazing. And then you throw in the fact that his curveball, which is measured as having the best rotation spin on it among any curveball and that's thrown by any other pitcher in the major leagues, and it's just amazing what he can do. And he just hasn't quite put it all together yet. When he does put it all together, when he's able to throw that sweeper, not just as a pitch, not just as a pitch to kind of get righties to swing at because they think it's coming in and down the plate, but when he's able to actually locate that thing and keep it on like the outside corner, that's when he really becomes like unfair. That's when he becomes like Jacob deGrom, because people will like tend to forget about deGrom and how good he was, but his ability to throw that slider for strikes as well as just like a wipeout pitch that batters would just miss out on. He's really great, and McLean is not deGrom. It's important that we sort of remember that even though there are, I think, similarities in terms of what he does, and there's this sort of like, wow, this guy's this good already, sort of quality to to McLean. I think we tend to sort of equate the two, and we also forget that it took deGrom a little while. I mean, he had, of course, the Rookie of the Year campaign 2014, 2015 was fantastic. 2016, 2017 fought injuries, was less consistent, and then was deified. And by 2018, 2019, he was the best pitcher in baseball. So there is a little bit of an adjustment as this thing goes along. People don't become aces overnight, unless you're Paul Skeens, of course. But it is important for us to sort of remember that, and sort of remember that he is not the complete package yet. He's damn good. He is really, really, really good. But just to keep that in mind, that McLean is going to be learning on the job, so to speak, and there are going to be days where he doesn't look like he has the best stuff, or days where he walks like 4 or 5 guys, or days where he gives up 3 home runs, and it's important to recall that this is a guy who's still rookie eligible, even though he made 8 starts last year and looks as good as he is. He's going to be going over this rookie campaign in 2026 and is one of the odds-on favorites to come away with Rookie of the Year by the end of 2026. But there is going to be an adjustment period, so I think we should all remember that. The Spring Breaker game was great. I don't know if anybody had tuned into that, but it was really fun to just watch all the prospects and see AJ Ewing and Elian Pena and Jacob Reimer, Ryan Clifford, and all these young guys, Chris Guerrero, Eli Morera. There were so many great prospects, and it was a great reminder that with everything that the Mets have traded over the last couple of years, and they haven't really traded too much. It's guys like Drew Gilbert, and then of course over the off season, trading away Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat, and you might be thinking wow, I feel like they're giving up a lot of prospects over time. They still haven't even cut into their top prospects, and then there's this next generation that's coming through, and AJ Ewing is a guy. Let's be very clear about how good Jet Williams is. Jet Williams is going to be probably playing at the major league level this year. I don't know if it's a guarantee that he's going to be breaking camp with the Brewers. Same thing goes for Sproat. Both those guys are major league ready. AJ Ewing might be way better than we really thought with Jet Williams was. And Jet Williams is going to be, I think, a legitimate pro. I think he's going to have a really good career. I think Sproat could have a good career. AJ Ewing could be special, though. That's the really... That's the knack that they really have to kind of hit. And Ewing didn't do too much in the spring breakout game last night, but he did enough that I was just reminded of how good he can be, and the potential with him is just overwhelming. It's not just the speed, which of course he's a great base dealer. He can really come away with maybe 60, 65 stolen bases over the course of a full season if he gets the playing time. And of course that's probably not happening this year, but 2027 is definitely on the books for AJ Ewing making his debut. I think they don't have much more time for Ewing to sort of develop here. He is almost fully at his prime abilities here, and I'm just astounded. Of course, the power has not yet come for Ewing. That's the last thing to come with these types of players. But he's got the speed, he's got the defense, great bat to ball ratios from him. He makes contact, he gets on base, draws walks. He does really everything that you really want from a guy like him. And the fact that he plays center field and plays it really well is important, because the Mets are kind of absent a long-term option in center field at this point. And of course, they have Carson Benjamin right and Juan Soto in left, but center field is up for grabs over the next couple of years, and AJ Ewing has the ability, if he can keep going on this trajectory, the sky's the limit for him. And people have been searching for comparisons for Ewing. A big one that Mets fans are making is Lenny Dykstra, just given of the speed, the defense, the extra base hit power that hasn't quite developed into home run power, but clearly there is, as the body develops, he's going to grow into that. But the comparison that I give my brother full credit for this one, the comparison I think is going to be most apt for Ewing is Jarren Duran of the Boston Red Sox, who Met fans might recognize because there's been some trade rumors over the last couple of years in terms of Duran coming to the Mets and them trying to find an option for him. And it doesn't look like the Red Sox are really interested in a trade at this point, given how well they did last year. But at one point, it looked like Duran might be a Met, because it seemed to fit exactly what they needed, just in terms of their timeline, and Duran's giving them a clear top of the order star hitter. And I really love what Duran does. And Duran was a very similar player to Ewing when he was coming up, and the Red Sox, rightfully viewed him as the guy who had major star potential and was a speedy defensive first player who made good contact, and the power has developed the last couple of years. Him hitting, I think, like 20, 15 home runs the last 2 years. And so that's what they view Ewing's potential. That's what he could be if time goes by and things play out the right way for AJ Ewing. So he's somebody to really pay attention to. Of course, Jacob Reimer. And this is where I really want to focus on is the prospects that they have coming up after the current crew, which is McLean, Tong. These are the guys who people are paying attention to right now because they are, they've already made their debuts. People are really interested in them. I'm most interested in the guys who are still in AAA, AA, who are on their way up and potentially are just as good as some of these other guys. And Jacob Reimer and Ryan Clifford look like two studs, both at first and third base. Again, two positions that the Mets don't really have sewn up long-term options for. Of course, they have Bo Bichette playing third base right now, but no one really knows what Bichette's future is going to be like, and most people are expecting Bichette to opt out after this year and go back into free agency. So there's really no indicator that he's going to be with the Mets for long-term. Jacob Reimer, really, really good in terms of what he does, above average power for third baseman. Plays his position fairly well, but isn't amazing. But and they might consider switching him over to first base also at some point. But as a hitter, just really, really fantastic, and he does so many good things. Ryan Clifford, 30 home run power, that's the expectation is if they ever call this guy up and he gets consistent playing time. I kind of liken him to Lucas Duda in that sense, just because it looks like they're trying to transition him from outfield to first base, and it looks like he can play either position pretty well, and he just hits the ball a ton. And there aren't a lot of major power bats in the Mets farm system. He's one of them. And I'm continually impressed by what I've seen in terms of highlights and AAA games that they've broadcast online. And what I can see from him is the guy who just looks like a legitimate pro hitter who's just waiting to be called up. And I'm excited to see these guys because they are really on the front lines. They are expected to be factors in this season and next season. And I don't know how much playing time we'll see of Clifford at the top. Kind of depends on availability. Maybe some people get hurt, hopefully not, but we may see Clifford up by the end of the year, and then certainly by 2027 unless some kind of trade has been made. But the point I'm trying to highlight here is they have so much talent still in their farm system that still has yet to be tapped, and we haven't seen make their major league debuts. We've seen flashes of them in spring training, and if you watch online, you can check out those AAA games and such, but and watch highlights of AA and whatever else you might want to watch. But we still have yet to see these guys take on pro hitting, which major league hitting, which is not to say that they can't do it. I'm just really excited for the time when they actually get a chance to play against pros and get their call ups, because they seem ready at this point. Just based on what I've seen, what the scouting reports are talking about, they are legit ready to go. And they have so many of these guys who are just legit ready to go. The guys I haven't talked about yet are the ones that I'm most impressed about, and that's Jack Wanger and Jonathan Santucci, who both pitched last night, and they both were fantastic. I think combined for 11 strikeouts over 7 1/3 innings. And both gave up home runs, but were limited contact. I think 4 or 5 total hits given up between the two of them. And it's the 11 strikeouts. I was just like, wow, okay. Combines, those guys can really pitch really well. Wenninger in particular. Santucci probably needs a little bit more seasoning, but is a really interesting left-handed prospect for the Mets. Jack Wenninger looks absolutely legit, though. And this is where giving up Brandon Sproat was a little bit easier, because again, Sproat looks like he can be a very serviceable number 4 or 5 starter in the league, and I'm certain will be, especially with the Milwaukee Brewers, who do really well with developing pitching prospects. But Jack Wenninger looks like he can be just as good, if not better, than Brandon Sproat, and that's really saying something, because Sproat is, as I've said, legitimately a very talented guy. But what we saw from him last night, and this is just like a few of the highlights, but his fastball was at times excellent. He was touching 97, which is basically as high as he goes. He's not going to throw overwhelming heat. He's mostly around. He's going to sit around 94, 95, but he can get it up there into the upper 90s if he really needs to. Most importantly, his fastball has good movement on it. That's the main knock on Sprode, is that his fastball just has no life. He throws it hard, but it's a straight pitch, and it's very easy to hit. So there's really nothing that is really too overwhelming. That's why they had to kind of transition him over to a sinker, which wasn't really that effective either. So this is where I have kind of like my questions about how good Sprode can be long term, and maybe it might be better as a reliever. Maybe that's real, like Final Destiny is becoming a reliever, maybe a closer with the Brewers. But with Wenger, that fastball has pretty good movement. It was featuring, I think, 20 inches of vertical break, so he gets rise on that thing. And certainly there are factors that kind of fall into this in terms of like wind and everything like that. But and he doesn't always have that kind of shape to his fastball. Doesn't always tunnel like that. And I wonder if, that there is some factors that are going into it, maybe just adrenaline with Wenger, but he was throwing that thing like really, he was really bringing that fastball really good, and he combines it so well with his off speed and breaking stuff. The highlight, of course, is his splitter, which is just a fantastic pitch, and has shades of Trey Yesavage in that splitter. Yesavige's trademark is his splitter. He combines this high velocity fastball that makes him just incredibly difficult to hit. So Wenger has those qualities to him. He doesn't have quite the same fastball that Yesavage does, but I'm really impressed by that splitter. I think I would put it as maybe the best splitter offering of anybody other than Yesavage in the Major League prospect class. And I've looked around. I don't see anybody with the kind of drop that he has. It really just falls off a cliff, and really, really good. Just in terms of the way that he's able to command that thing, he gets a really really uses it in a smart way, and it counts. I was just really impressed. And then he throws a slider, which isn't like a fantastic pitch, but certainly not bad. It's a perfectly solid pitch. I think he gets it across like 2 planes over the plate. So he has good movement on it. It's just not like an overwhelming pitch, but the more he develops it, I'm going to be pretty confident in what I'm seeing from him. And his stuff is just really legit. I'm just like blown away by how good he is at such a young age, and a big kid also, like very very large. Like, this is important just in terms of like how you can handle yourself over like a full season's workload, but also over the course of a full game. And you need to be able to keep that velocity up, which he can in terms of his minor league performances. And he's able to throw that fastball with still pretty good life and velocity on it, even late into the start. So even though we didn't see him a ton in this game, what we did see was really, really great. Santucci, as I said, wasn't quite as impressive, but still looked pretty good. And he struck out 5, allowed the solo run, which wasn't even earned, came off an error. Had good movement on his fastball, mixed in his breaking balls. Didn't do too great throwing the changeup, but this is really kind of where I'm like kind of putting him as. He's clearly their fourth best pitching prospect at the moment, but there is time for him to continue to develop. Wenger needs less time. Wenger's much more of a finished product, and a guy that, if need be, they can call up and put him into a situation. And I think he can handle himself pretty well. I would not be surprised. Santucci just needs a little bit more time in the Mets farm system, and it would be good if they didn't rush him, which would be very helpful, especially after the Jonathan disaster last year. What we also saw was Elian Pena, who is this obviously very hyped teenage prospect that they signed internationally. He ripped a single work to walk. He is obviously extremely young. I think he's 18 years old, but the power is developing very quickly, and there's a lot of interest in terms of what he can do for them long term. And he's a shortstop, probably a little bit too big, and doesn't really play the position that well that they really need to keep him at short. They may transition him over to second base at a later avenue, maybe third. Everything I'm seeing from the Mets farm system, it just tells a story right now. What that I'm very intrigued with, which is they have a next man up philosophy here. They traded 2 top 5 prospects, and they didn't seem to really even it didn't seem to factor in for them that yeah, no, this is a lot to give up, but it doesn't really affect them that much in terms of what's already happening. They have a really deep system, and it's been built up over the course of the last 3 years to the point that even before David Stearns, some of these picks were coming before him. McLean, Tong, these were both guys who were drafted prior to David Stearns taking over and starting his evaluations of the farm system. So this is over 2 generations of GMs reviewing and kind of going over prospects. And the Stearns era, I think, has gleaned even more talent because guys like Carson Bench have really kind of changed the tone. And the news that came out today, I don't know if I mentioned before, we're recording on Friday afternoon. The news coming from Bench was it's not official as of yet, but the plan is that they are going to have him break camp with the main ball club, and that's a big thing for Carson Bench, who was drafted a very short time ago, made his way very quickly through the Mets minor league system. Didn't see a ton of time at AAA, but the Mets gave him a very good long look this spring training, and he has done enough in their eyes. And in the eyes of the general public, that he deserves a chance to play and keep a job here. We don't know how the roster configuration is going to play out, but it looks like they're going to keep 5 outfielders for the time being. Tyrone Taylor, Luis Robert Jr., Carson Bench, Mike Tauchman, and Tyrone Taylor. And that group, especially in the case of Luis Robert Jr., who is going to need a lot of off days, that their plan is to kind of use Tyrone Taylor in not necessarily a platoon, but they're going to keep using him as a 4th outfielder type, and they're going to see if Benj and Tauchman can kind of hold down the right field for it. And Tauchman's had a great spring. He's an experienced pro. I think he really deserved the opening day job here. And Carson Bench has done some stuff. I wouldn't say he's had an amazing spring. This is not Pete Alonso in 2019, who was just hitting bombs after bomb. But what we have seen from Bench is a very complete picture, and I'm extremely impressed. I haven't talked about Carson Bench at all in this podcast up to now, and that kind of gives you an indicator of just how deep the Mets farm system is. That I can mention their top hitting prospects, and I kind of sort of gloss over him because there's just so much talent that's coming up through here, and it really is it's amazing to see as a Met fan, because I remember when I really started first paying attention to the team in the early 2000s. And there was so much hype, surrounding David Wright and Jose Reyes, and guys like Mike Jacobs and last name's Miller. And there were so many talented prospects that looked like they were on their way up, that were going to sort of form this core, this nucleus for a new Met generation. And ultimately, only 2 of those guys really went anywhere, Wright and Reyes. But and none of the pitching prospects really panned out for them. But what we are seeing now is a new generation that's kind of built around guys like McLean and Benj and Ewing, who are clearly very, very talented, and I think can definitely make this team at some point. And McLean and Benj are as ready as 2 guys can be. Of course, Tong is going to need a little bit more time. I think AJ Ewing could use probably a full year in AAA as well, but he is ready to go. I very much see him as the future center fielder for this team. Jonah Tong, there's a lot to kind of love about what Jonah Tong does, but he's somebody who also needs more time to kind of figure out what he's doing and see if really what he can do is be a major league pitcher. There's a big difference between being a minor league pitcher and a major league pitcher. You can be a star in the minor leagues. You can't necessarily transition over to the major leagues if you don't have the command and the consistent off-speed stuff and consistent breaking stuff. Right now he is a two-pitch pitcher, and if he's not commanding those pitches, then he's going to run to a lot of trouble. So they really need him to continue his progression, take their time with Tong, with the bevy of pitchers that they have available right now, which I haven't mentioned, also includes Christian Scott, who's making his return. They have a lot of options here. Jack Winger is another option for them. Jonathan Santucci, while like Tong still needs a lot of work, is another guy who I could see pitching for this team at some point. So it is right now just a smorgasbord of options for this team, and they have. When you have this many options, it really does feel like you can make a make or break trade, like going after Freddie Peralta, or you can sign somebody like Bo Bichette, and you can feel confident that like they have the necessary reinforcements to call up if need be. And we've seen great success already with a guy like McLean, who really announced himself to the world, and even though is not yet a finished pitcher yet in terms of his overall progress, I am still just dumbfounded that how good he is already. And I think I'm going to feel the same way about Carson Bench. I think I'm going to be amazed by the power, the contact, the athleticism, the throwing arm. He just has all the necessary tools for it to be a success very early on. And I wouldn't be surprised if people are calling him one of the best rookies in baseball by the end of the year. But It's a really great feeling as a Met fan to have that much farm system humming like it is. Their ability to just keep bringing guys up to the point that you can look down the depth chart of their minor league rankings and just see guy after guy. And I'm like, that guy, the guy's the number 15 prospect on the team, but I kind of see in the future like guys like Will Wagner and Eli Marrero being maybe potential options for this team. Maybe Chris Suero. There's a lot of really good guys that, of course, have not seen a ton of playing time yet in the minor leagues, just in terms of overall experience. But it really is something to dream on, that they just have such a loaded farm system, and even with the trades that they've made, they still have a loaded farm system, one of the best farm systems in baseball. So a lot to love, and I'm really excited for what's going to be, I think, a really great 2026 season. I think we're going to see that much more coming over the next couple of years with what this farm system can continue to bring, and by 2028, forget it. Like a lot of these guys could be up and being considered major parts of this team. So love it. I love to see where we are, what we've done, where we are going, what we have done. It's just so exciting, and I can't get enough. So I love it. I'm really excited. I'm going to do another episode coming up before opening day, just going over my projections and my predictions for the 2026 season. I know I've been a little lax in terms of recordings, but I'm going to be more consistent when the season starts. So look forward to that, and looking forward to the season. Let's go Mets.